him royalties if I said
You
that.
would. How great would that be?
That's right.
Riles would love that, too.
Yeah. Pat Riley needs the money, so I'll send him a check.
New York sports writer has to pay up for three-peat. Welcome to PTI. Tony's off today, so I am lucky to be joined by our great friend, the feisty fill-in Frank Isola.
Each day it's getting lower and lower.
I know, they're getting
not
tired
a good
of you
sign.
after 3 days. I'm not tired of you, though, Frank. We begin
Thank you.
with the Edmonton Oilers evening up the Western Conference Final with the Dallas Stars at 2 games apiece. The Stars struck first and scored last night twice, taking that 2-0 lead just 5.5 minutes into the game. But the Oilers then scored 5 unanswered from there, and it could have been 6 if Connor McDavid hadn't been robbed by Jake Ottinger's abandoned stick. Frank, you and I both talked yesterday about the Stars being the better team. So are you looking at this as just one game, or do you trust that the Oilers have found something?
I trust that the Oilers have found something, and I want to thank you for reminding everyone how we talked about the Dallas Stars, and I talked about their great goaltender, Jake Ottinger, and how great their defense was. Then they're up 1-0, 58 seconds in, and like you mentioned, 2-0, 5. And one of them was a shorthanded goal, and right at 51 seconds later, Leon Draisaitl makes it, he made it 4-2. They get the empty netter. Something interesting happened, though, in the second period of this game. Chris Tanev, the defenseman for the Stars, he blocked Evander Kane's shot, and he didn't return. They're calling a lower leg injury. It's his ankle or his foot. And now the fact that he didn't return, that worries me. And if he can't play, he's an important part of this, Mike, because, he has 68 blocked shots. That's more than anybody else thus far in the playoffs. So the strength of this team, like we talked about yesterday, is defense. They got rattled, and now they could be shorthanded heading back home.
And something else, Frank, on the Edmonton side of this ledger, Darnell Nurse, who'd been having a bad series. Bad series early on and was on the ice for both Dallas goals last night, right? One of them actually deflects off of him. He then recovers and plays according to his teammates and everybody who was locked into that game in the second and third periods, 2 great periods thereafter. And so if you can join the party late and you're as instrumental as Nurse is for that team, that's something else that goes well for Edmonton. But, the goal that McDavid gets robbed, I mean, you see that and you're like, okay, shouldn't there be a rule? Shouldn't there be something for a stick just laying behind the goaltender in the crease and gets away from him? And yes, abandons the right word. But it seems like Edmonton's found something. But let me just say this as somebody who's rooting for him, Frank. They look really bad and really great. Sometimes they have swings within a 10-minute stretch. They'll go score a shorthanded goal and then, have power play issues. So I don't know what to make of it. I hope they found something.
Well, also, let's give Stuart Skinner a lot of credit, the goaltender, because he was under a lot of pressure as well. You give up 2 quick goals like that, you have everybody in the arena, they're thinking we're not going to win this game. Another thing to keep in mind about Edmonton, scoring the shorthanded goal, do you know that they're 9 for 9 on penalty kills thus far in the series? Pretty good. Dallas is yet to score a power play goal. All right, the NBA Western Conference Finals are back on the court tonight. The Timberwolves stayed alive with a Game 4 win in Dallas on Tuesday night and will need to do it again to push the series to a Game 6 in Dallas. Now, the Mavs center, Derek Lively, he missed the Mavs' loss and was listed as questionable for tonight's game following this morning's shoot-around. Mike, what are the chances in your mind that the Timberwolves win tonight?
Okay, so 2 days ago, we did a similar odds maker style question.
And
I said I gave the Timberwolves a 30% chance of winning Game 4 and staving off elimination in Dallas. And so tonight, back in Minnesota, and I don't know that home court has meant all that much to Minnesota because we've seen them drop some games and also win some big ones on the road. But I think they have found something too. And even if Lively does play, and let's face it, Dallas is better with Lively defensively and as a weapon, an option for Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving to throw lob passes to. Even if Lively plays, I'm going to say Minnesota is a 60% chance to win tonight and extend this series to Game 6. And I think it revolves around Karl Anthony Towns. We talked about it yesterday coming out of Game 4. Now I'm feeling that going into Game 5. If they have really supported and rallied around Karl Anthony Towns and he can produce he got to produce. And he and Ant-Man look like the stars that we think they are. I'm going to 60% chance for Minnesota to extend this thing to Game 6.
Yeah, just for the record, you were wrong about Minnesota. I thought they would win Game 4. Something to keep in mind, and you mentioned home court advantage. This is what's making the playoffs somewhat interesting here, is that the home team in the second round of the conference finals is 16-17. So the home team actually has a losing record. And Minnesota, though, when they were facing an elimination game against Denver in the first round, that Game 6, they blew out Denver. They're going to need a performance like that tonight. High energy. That's the big thing with Anthony Edwards that he didn't have in that Game 3 loss to Dallas. It wasn't that he just didn't play well. It was low energy on both ends of the court. So
but he had it for Game 4. He had that energy in Game 4.
He 100% did. And I think the same thing with Karl Anthony Towns. It's not don't shoot. It's take better shots. And I thought he got better shots, especially in that fourth quarter. He comes into the game 3 for 22 on threes in the first 3 games. And then that little stretch right there, after they fell behind, he knocks down 3 3-pointers, which really changed the game. I would think tonight for Minnesota, I find it a little hard to believe that they're actually going to lose 3 home games in the Western Conference Finals. And I'll tell you what, it happened last year with Miami when Miami was up 3-0. And then, of course, Boston came all the way back and had a Game 7 on their home court. I understand the record. Again, it's 155-0 for a team that takes a 3-0 lead. But maybe Minnesota, a team that went on the road and won a Game 7 in Denver, down 20, they could be the kind of team that can do it.
They could. Look, the greatest thing about this series going tonight to Game 5, Frank, is drama. I mean, the East is done, over. Like, you got to wait 26 days to get back into the action. But drama in the West, drama in Minneapolis tonight, and now to Klay Thompson's future with the Warriors, if there is one. The Athletic reports that there has been no notable movement on a new deal for Thompson, whose contract expires at the end of June. The report says the Warriors, quote, maintain a desire to retain Thompson at the right price, but that the 34-year-old appears ready to test the free agent waters. That will be for the first time in his career, as you know, Frank. Klay has been a staple of those 4 title teams at Golden State and has never played for anybody else. So, do you think it's more likely Thompson stays with the Dubs or leaves?
This is what would worry me. I think if it gets personal, and I think a lot of times with contract negotiations, it does. And I think a lot of times players want to be paid for services rendered. When a team has to look at it realistically and where you are right now in your career and how it impacts the salary cap, that's why I think he could be on the move. And a couple of stats to keep in mind. You mentioned the age. Last year, 17.9 points. That was his lowest scoring average since his second year in the league. But he's still a terrific shooter. My thing that would worry me about Klay, Mike, and you know this from watching all their games, there always comes about 10 times during the year where it's state of Klay Thompson and how is Klay's mood and Klay's down. I just envision he'll end up in Orlando or Philadelphia. Mike, it'll be December 10th, and there will be Klay on the bench at the end of the game just staring into space thinking, what did I do? I just should have stayed in Golden State with my guy, Steph Curry. Because you know what? Ultimately, that's what he should do.
Frank, it's like impossible to argue that your point is not valid. It is totally valid. I know the look you're talking about. I'm a huge fan of Klay Thompson, and I think that he is still underrated. By the way, with all the drama and angst over what Klay is doing the last 2 years, Klay's a 41% three-point shooter for his whole career. You know what he shot last year from 3? 41%. You know what he shot this year from 3? 39%. So the notion that Klay Thompson is falling off the table or falling down and can't get up is just wrong. As the youngsters, as my son would say, it's cap. It's lies. It's just not true. And so, but let me mention this. If I'm Klay Thompson, am I going to win in Golden State again? With Draymond being 35 or close to it and Steph being whatever he is, 36. Listen, if he goes to, say, Oklahoma City, you mean to tell me Oklahoma City is not a serious threat and maybe even the favorite in the West for a season or two with Klay Thompson? And if he goes to Philly and he's playing with Embiid and he's playing with Maxey and they got everything else and they got a bench and they got a proven coach in Nick Nurse, man, Klay has got to look at those situations, Frank, and say, wait a minute, do I have a better chance to win here, or am I going to be nostalgic about this and stay at Golden State? I don't think there's a wrong decision. He has earned in his Hall of Fame career whatever to do whatever the hell he wants. But Klay Thompson at OKC, to me, is irresistible.
Yeah. And Orlando, remember, Orlando and Philadelphia are both, contending type of teams that need shooting. And one thing about Klay, who went back-to-back years with the knee injury and then the Achilles, you mentioned, we both mentioned a lot of the numbers. Here's another one. 77 games played last year. So he was really durable last season. He played.
You know what? It's going to be all right for Klay. I think it really will be. In the meantime, let's take a break. Coming up, 2 rookie pitchers had distinctly different results yesterday. Which was more newsworthy?
And who needs tonight's Game 5 more, the Panthers or the Rangers? The game is right behind me happening. A couple hours.
Frank took a shot at me in the A block, so it is time to exact some retribution. What's first?
Toss-up, which rookie pitcher had the more newsworthy start yesterday? Paul Skeens or Shota Imanaga?
Frank, I'm hoping Imanaga's start is ignored by everybody because it was a bad one, his first bad one. His first bad one. He's been great. People thought he was going to come to the Cubs and be like a 4th starter. Instead, he went Fernando Valenzuela through like 7 starts. He was 5-1, and his ERA was like, 0.84? But yesterday he gives up 7 earned, and he'd only given up 5 earned in all the previous starts. So Skeens is the answer. Skeens struck out 9 in 6 innings. This is what he does. He throws 100 miles an hour, multiple pitches, sometimes double-digit pitches, and people go down, whether it's swinging or looking, but mostly swinging. And Skeens is amazing because he's with Pittsburgh and in the same division as the Cubs. It scares the hell out of me. 22nd birthday, 9 strikeouts. Yeah. He's untouchable.
Yeah. Imanaga's the story because guess what, Mike? I hate to tell you, he's not going to be perfect. At some point, he was going to get roughed up. And you think about what happened to him yesterday, 5 1/3, 7 earned runs, 8 hits. There were 2 home runs. And you mentioned, here's a guy that comes into the game with that ERA at 0.84, like you mentioned. Through 9 starts, that was the lowest ERA since they started doing the stat back in 1913. And now here he is after the game. It's still 1.86, which is still 3rd best in the majors, which is amazing. As for Skeens, how about this? 8 strikeouts over 4 innings. And both of them, they're the kind of pitchers, when they come up and you want to go to a game, those are the guys that you want to see pitch.
You want to go see them.
I mean, and Skeens just has that quality about him. And by the way, you talk about that funky pitch that he throws. It's really a splitter. 6 of his 9 strikeouts came with that pitch on the splitter.
That's unfair. That's unfair when you can throw that hard and throw that sort of change of speed, even if it's slight.
Nasty.
My goodness, with movement. What's next?
Toss-up, who needs tonight's game more, the Panthers or the Rangers?
The Rangers. The Rangers need it more. The Rangers are back home. And the Rangers had the best home record. But I will say this. It's interesting, Frank, that the Panthers have set the league record for road wins each of the past 3 seasons. Yeah. They went 26, 27, 31. Boom. They win on the road. But and they got to win on the road because 2 of the final 3 are in Madison Square Garden. But the Rangers have lost, I think, 4 consecutive Game 5s. They got to get on the board and win this Game 5 at home. This is no time to continue that streak.
Now, you're 100% right. It's the Rangers, and it really comes down to 3 guys. They're 3 best players, Panarin, Kreider, and Mika Zibanejad. Those guys during the regular season combined for 114 goals, 267 points. In this series, 3 assists. That's all they have, no goals. And if I'm the Rangers, I'm sitting there thinking, all right, we've played 3 overtime games. We've won 2 of them. We're tied at 2-2. But my 3 best players haven't really done anything. At some point, they're going to catch some breaks. And Zibanejad the other night could have made it 2-0, but Bobrovsky made that crazy save off his back. In fact, he has an assist, which is more than 2 of the players on the Rangers have thus far in this series. So I get it. The Rangers have been outplayed, and a lot of it has to do with the 3 players I just mentioned. I think you'll see at 1 or 2 of them start to come alive. If not, the Rangers are going to head back to Florida, Mike. They're going to be down 3-2 in the series.
But, Frank, they better generate some offense. I mean, getting outshot and just
every game
out-executed offensively, that at home, that shouldn't play. But that's where the Rangers have been, and they've still been able to win 2 of those 3 overtime games. That's it. We're taking one last break. But still to come, a tough par 3, really tough, at the U.S. Women's Open for Nelly Korda.
And here's a crazy story. A Mets reliever throws his glove into the stands, then promptly gets thrown off the team. Just another day in Metland.
Oh, is that just?
Crazy.
I mean, is that the punishment fitting the crime? I don't know.
Not good. Classic Mets.
It's time to get happy, people. Happy 50s.
So pretty cool. You know, he grew up playing in the same playground where Lou Gehrig grew up playing baseball. How about that? Got hit in the right hand on a pitch. X-rays came back negative, so nothing broken there. So I guess that's a good thing. Unless you're Pete Alonso, maybe you don't want to come back to this team. That's another way.
I've hated the Mets since I was 10 years old for their situation with the Cubs. Hate them, love them when they're in misery. One omission. Adam Schefter reports this year's season of HBO's Hard Knocks will feature the Chicago Bears. It's the worst news I could possibly hear.
Set your DVD, Mike. You'll be all over
Not
it.
watching.
You'll be all over it.
We're running out of show. Let's jump to the big finish. French Open's banned alcohol from the stands after some rowdy behavior. You okay with that, Frank?
Yeah, you could still drink outside the stadium. You know this as a Premier League fan. It's the same thing there. You can't drink inside the stadium. Nothing wrong with that. Nelly Korda had a 10 on the par 3 12 at the U.S. Women's Open. Your reaction?
I hate it because I love Nelly Korda. I'm rooting for her, and she's 12 back already. Maybe she has a great round dinner to stay to make the cut. Jalen Waddle and the Dolphins agreed on a 3-year extension. $76 million guaranteed. Is that significant?
Yeah, it's significant for Tua. The Wizards removed the interim tag for my good buddy Brian Keefe. Is that okay by you?
Yes, but the Wizards are irrelevant. They're going to be irrelevant for maybe, 2, 3 more seasons. Last one, WNBA tonight. Storm, Fever, Spark, Sky. Who you got?
Fever get their second win in Barron. Spark Sky is Cameron Brink versus Angel Reese. We're out of time. Thanks for watching. I'm Frank Isola.
It's a ball and puck night. I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, knuckleheads. You can get the podcast on the app or Apple Podcast. Happy 90th birthday, Jigsy.
Yeah, happy birthday,
Pretty damn
Jigsy.
good.
That's all.
The scene on the floor, and let's start with Dave here. So, Dave, after avoiding a sweep on Tuesday night, what are the Timberwolves saying about Game 5?
Kevin, well, Micah Nori, the Wolves assistant coach who's been taking care of the sideline duties while Chris Finch, the head coach, is recovering from the patellar tendon injury, has the nickname Micah Lasso around this team, alluding to Ted Lasso for his spirit and energy and sense of humor. Well, it's appropriate with Micah Lasso on the sidelines that Rudy Gobert said this morning that I just think this team has a lot of guys who believe right now going into Game 5. And Gobert, when I asked him about why they seem so loose and confident right now, he said, it's a group that we've been working a long time to get to this point. We've already established our identity over the last 2 years, so we just have to play with that identity. Mike Conley said the other night that the reason he feels confident is we haven't played our best basketball yet. If we start to do that, the tide can turn. Obviously, this team, you have Naz Reid telling me the other night, I believe we can be the first team in NBA history to win 4 in a row. And Jaden McDaniels echoed that same thing after Game 4. He said, we got the hard one with getting Game 4. Now we just got to go out and win 3 more in a row.
Okay, easy said than done. Minnesota, though, again, 3-0 when facing elimination this postseason. Dave, thank you so much. Let's go now to Tim McMahon, who's with the Mavericks. And Derek Lively's absence, that loomed large in Game 4. What's the latest on his status for tonight's game?
Howdy, Kevin. Derek Lively talked to us after shoot-around, said he's still trying to figure out what he can do. Then they booted reporters out of the lower bowl so Lively could go through a workout, an individual workout where for the first time since taking that knee to the back of his head, he did explosive movements. He ran, he jumped, he caught lob passes. Again, that lasted about 10 minutes. I was told afterward the workout went pretty well. There is hope that he'll play, but they needed to see how his neck and how his back, it's basically a whiplash type of injury, how that would respond. He still is questionable for tonight's game, but again, if it responds well, there's hope that he can be available for the Mavericks, and obviously that would be a massive boost to the Mavericks as they're trying to close out this series.
So good defensively. Keep in mind the Mavericks are a perfect 7-0 this postseason when Lively scores in double figures on the offensive side. Tim McMahon has Dallas just 1 win away from the NBA Finals. Hannah?
But the Timberwolves, Kevin, boy, do they want to make some history, including the Wolves in this series. 156 teams have trailed a series 3-0 in NBA postseason history. Minnesota is one of 61 teams who won Game 4. Only 4 teams have managed to push the series all the way to Game 7. Most recently, of course, the Celtics in last year's conference finals against the Heat. But none have gone on to win. Mike and Frank have more in tonight's PTI bonus topic.
All right, Frank. Who is more critical to the Mavs' success tonight, Luka or Kyrie?
I think the man that drives the bus is Luka Doncic. The last time he was in Minnesota, what did he do, Mike? He hit that shot over Rudy Gobert to win the game.
Yeah.
Now he's back. And here's what happens, too. He's listed as questionable. We know he's going to play. But he's got the knee and he's dealing with an ankle. This is why you want to end these series as early as you can. The longer he goes, it's going to be rougher if they do make it to the next round. But Luke in the last game, here's something to remember, Mike. He was 5 for 15 with Anthony Edwards as the primary defender. That was the little adjustment that Chris Finch made. I think that'll be the same case tonight. So I think if Dallas is going to get through and win tonight, which will not be easy, I think it all comes down to Luke and how he plays.
Well, I think it's Luka, Frank, and I don't know that it'll be because of Ant Edwards on him guarding him again. If anything, Chris Finch may have to make another adjustment. You think Luka's not going to adjust himself to Ant-Man? Of course he is. Luka's that great. You know what, Frank? I've been watching him. First of all, the answer is Luka, not because he and Kyrie have been absolute partners. Partners in this whole run that the Mavericks have had and understanding what they had to do better going back to the All-Star break. When Kyrie, who the other day told us on Countdown, listen, we knew this was not sustainable to be a championship team unless we could defend better. And then they did it. He and Luka got to a place where they are pretty darn good. Not all-time great defenders, but really good. But Luka, with his passing, Frank, to me, he's the best passer the NBA has seen since vintage Steve Nash. And we might go back further. I mean, you know me, I am loath to invoke the names Magic and Bird. If I'm going to compare somebody to Magic and Bird, you better be wearing rings, plural, because they got 8 of them. But he utilizes his teammates, and even though he has a high usage rate and has the ball a little long for me, a lot of possessions, my God, he is a wondrous passer, and that can take you out no matter how well you have played him defensively.
And remember something about both of them. They're not going to get rattled on the road. Kyrie, do we need to go back to when he played for Cleveland and they won that Game 5 at Golden State? And, of course, in Game 7, he's responsible for the biggest shot in Cavaliers history. So they will not be rattled by being on the road. All right, that's it. We're done. Back to you.
Thank you, guys. More on this game ahead. How Luka and Kyrie must adjust tonight to bounce back from their worst